After Love by Sarah Teasdale. Read for LibriVox.org by Dana Meilinger. There is no magic anymore. We meet as other people do. You work no miracle for me, nor I for you. You are the wind, and I the sea. There is no splendor anymore. I have grown listless as the pool beside the shore. But though the pool is safe from storm, and from the tide has found surcease, it grows more bitter than the sea, for all its peace. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Arsenal at Springfield by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Read for LibriVox.org by Leonard Wilson of Springfield, Ohio, January 2011. This is the arsenal. From floor to ceiling, like a huge organ, rise the burnished arms. But from their silent pipes no anthem pealing startles the villages with strange alarms. Ah, what a sound will rise, how wild and dreary, when the death angel touches those swift keys! What loud lament and dismal miserere will mingle with their awful symphonies! I hear even now the infinite fierce chorus, the cries of agony, the endless groan, which through the ages that have gone before us, in long reverberations reach our own. On helm and harness rings the Saxon hammer, through Sembric forests roars the Norseman's song, and loud amid the universal clamor, o'er distant deserts sounds the Tartar gong. I hear the Florentine, who from his palace wheels out his battle bell with dreadful din, and Aztec priests upon their teocallis beat the wild war drums made of serpent skin. The tumult of each sacked and burning village, the shout that every prayer for mercy drowns, the soldiers' revels in the midst of pillage, the wail of famine in beleaguered towns. The bursting shell, the gateway wrenched asunder, the rattling musketry, the clashing blade, and ever and anon in tones of thunder the diapason of the cannonade. Is it, O man, with such discordant noises, with such accursed instruments as these, thou drownest nature's sweet and kindly voices, and jarrest the celestial harmonies? Were half the power that fills the world with terror, were half the wealth bestowed on camps and courts, given to redeem the human mind from error, there were no need of arsenals or forts. The warrior's name would be a name abhorred, and every nation that should lift again its hand against a brother, on his forehead would wear forevermore the curse of Cain. Down the dark future, through long generations, the echoing sounds grow fainter, and then cease, and like a bell with solemn sweet vibrations, I hear once more the voice of Christ say, Peace. Peace, and no longer from its brazen portals the blast of war's great organ shakes the skies, but beautiful as songs of the immortals, the holy melodies of love arise. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Bells by Edgar Allan Poe. Read for LibriVox.org by Joshua Commander. Hear the sledges with the bells, silver bells, what a world of merriment their melody foretells, how they tinkle, tinkle, tinkle in the icy air of night, while the stars that oversprinkle all the heavens seem to twinkle with a crystalline delight, keeping time, 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 in a sort of runic rhyme, to the tintinnabulation that so musically swells from the bells, 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 from the jingling and the tinkling of the bells. Hear the mellow wedding bells, golden bells, what a world of happiness their harmony foretells, through the balmy air of night, how they ring out their delight, from the molten golden notes, and all in tune, what a liquid ditty floats to the turtle dove that listens while she gloats on the moon! Oh, from out the sounding cells, what a gush of euphony voluminously wells! How it swells, how it dwells on the future, how it tells of the rapture that impels to the swinging and the ringing of the bells, 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 of the bells, 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 to the rhyming and the chiming of the bells. Hear the loud alarum bells, brazen bells! What a tale of terror now their turbulently tells! In the startled ear of night, how they scream out their affright! Too much horrified to speak, they can only shriek, shriek out of tune, in a clamorous appealing to the mercy of the fire, in a mad expostulation with a deaf and frantic fire, leaping higher, 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 with a desperate desire and a resolute endeavor, now to sit or never, by the side of the pale-faced moon. Oh, the bells, bells, bells! What a tale their terror tells of despair! How they clang and clash and roar! What a horror they outpour on the bosom of the palpitating air! Yet the ear it fully knows, by the twanging and the clanging, how the danger ebbs and flows. Yet the ear distinctly tells, in the jangling and the wrangling, how the danger sinks and swells, by the sinking or the swelling in the anger of the bells, of the bells, of the bells, 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 and the clamor and the clangor of the bells. Hear the tolling of the bells, iron bells! What a world of solemn thought their melody compels! In the silence of the night, how we shiver with affright at the melancholy menace of their tone! For every sound that floats from the rust within their throats is a groan. And the people, ah, the people, they that dwell up in the steeple all alone, and who, tolling, 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 in that muffled monotone, feel a glory and soul rolling on the human heart as stone, they are neither man nor woman, they are neither brute nor human, they are ghouls. And their king it is who tolls, and he rolls, 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 a paean from the bells, and his merry bosom swells with the paean of the bells, and he dances and he yells, keeping time, 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 in a sort of runic rhyme, to the paean of the bells, keeping time, 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 in a sort of runic rhyme, to the throbbing of the bells, 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 to the sobbing of the bells, keeping time, 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 as he knells, 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 in a happy runic rhyme, to the rolling of the bells, 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 to the tolling of the bells, 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 to the moaning and the groaning of the bells. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Between the Lines by Wilfred Wilson Gibson. Read for LibriVox.org by Trisha G. When consciousness came back, he found he lay between the opposing fires, but could not tell on which hand were his friends, and either way for him to turn was chancy, bullet and shell whistling and shrieking over him as the glare of searchlights scoured the darkness to blind day. He scrambled to his hands and knees a-scare, dragging his wounded foot through puddled clay, and tumbled in a hole a shell had scooped at random in a turnip field between the unseen trenches where the foes lay cooped through that unending battle of unseen, deadlocked, league-stretching armies, and quite spent, he rolled upon his back within the pit, and lay secure, thinking of all it meant. His lying in that little hole sore hit, but living, while across the starry sky shrapnel and shell went screeching overhead. Of all it meant that he, Tom Dodd, should lie among the Belgian turnips, while his bed, if it were he, indeed, who'd climbed each night, fagged with the day's work, up the narrow stair, and slipped his clothes off in the candle-light, too tired to fold them neatly in a chair, the way his mother'd taught him, too dog-tired, after the long day's serving in the shop, inquiring what each customer required, politely talking whether fit to drop. And now, for 14 days and nights at least, he hadn't had his clothes off, and had lain in muddy trenches, napping like a beast, with one eye open, under sun and rain, and that unceasing hell-fire. It was strange how things turned out, the chances. You'd just got to take your luck in life, you couldn't change your luck. And so here he was lying shot, who just 6 months ago had thought to spend his days behind a counter. Still, perhaps... And now God only knew how he would end. He'd like to know how many of the chaps had won back to the trench alive when he had fallen wounded and been left for dead, if any. This was different, certainly, from selling knots of tape and reels of thread, and knots of tape and reels of thread, and knots of tape and reels of thread, and knots of tape, day in, day out, and answering, "Have you gots?" and "Do you keeps?" till there seemed no escape, from everlasting serving in a shop, inquiring what each customer required, politely talking weather, fit to drop, with swollen ankles, tired. But he was tired, now. Every bone was aching, and had ached, for 14 days and nights in that wet trench. Just duller when he slept than when he waked. Crouching for shelter from the steady drench of shell and shrapnel. That old trench, it seemed, almost like home to him. He'd slept and fed, and sung and smoked in it, while shrapnel screamed, and shells went whining harmless overhead. Harmless, at least, as far as but Dick. Dick hadn't found them harmless yesterday, at breakfast, when he'd said he couldn't stick, eating dry bread, and crawled out the back way, and brought them butter in a lordly dish. Butter enough for all, and held it high, yellow and fresh and clean as you would wish, when plump upon the plate from out the sky a shell fell bursting. Where the butter went, God only knew, and Dick—he dared not think of what had come to Dick, or what it meant. The shrieking and the whistling and the stink he'd lived in 14 days and nights. 'Twas luck that he still lived, and queer how little then he seemed to care that Dick—perhaps 'twas pluck that hardened him, a man among the men, perhaps, yet only think things out a bit, and he was rabbit-livered blue with funk. And he'd liked Dick, and yet when Dick was hit he hadn't turned a hair, the meanest skunk he should have thought would feel it when his mate was blown to smithereens, Dick, proud as Punch, grinning like sin and holding up the plate, but he had gone on munching his dry hunch, unwinking, till he swallowed the last crumb. Perhaps 'twas just because he dared not let his mind run upon Dick who'd been his chum. He dared not now, though he could not forget. Dick took his luck, and, life or death, 'twas luck, from first to last, and you'd just got to trust your luck and grin. It wasn't so much pluck as knowing that you'd got to when needs must, and better to die grinning. Quiet now had fallen on the night. On either hand the guns were quiet, cool upon his brow the quiet darkness brooded as he scanned the starry sky. He'd never seen before so many stars, although of course he'd known that there were stars somehow before the war, he'd never realized them, so thick sown, millions and millions. Serving in the shop, stars didn't count for much, and then at nights, strolling the pavements dull and fit to drop, you didn't see much but the city lights. He'd never in his life seen so much sky as he'd seen this last fortnight. It was queer, the things war taught you. He'd a mind to try to count the stars, they shone so bright and clear. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ah, God, but he was tired. 5, 6, 7, 8. Yes, it was number 8. And what was the next thing that she required? Too bad of customers to come so late, at closing time. Again within the shop he handled knots of tape and reels of thread, politely talking weather fit to drop. When once again the whole sky overhead flared blind with searchlights, and the shriek of shell and scream of shrapnel roused him. Drowsily he stared about him wondering, then he fell into deep dreamless slumber. He could see 2 dark eyes peeping at him ere he knew he was awake, and it again was day, an August morning burning to clear blue. The frightened rabbit scuttled. Far away a sound of firing, up there in the sky big dragonflies hung hovering, snowballs burst about them, flies and snowballs. With a cry he crouched to watch the airmen pass, the first that he'd seen under fire. Lord, that was pluck! Shells bursting all about them, and what nerve! They took their chance and trusted to their luck. At such a dizzy height to dip and swerve, dodging the shell fire. Hell, but one was hit, and tumbling like a pigeon plump. Thank heaven! It righted and then turned, and after it the whole flock followed safe. 4, 5, 6, 7. Yes, they were all there safe. He hoped they'd win, back to their lines in safety. They deserved, even if they were Germans. 'Twas no sin to wish them luck. Think how that beggar swerved just in the nick of time. He, too, must try to win back to the lines, though likely as not he'd take the wrong turn. But he couldn't lie forever in that hungry hole and rot. He'd got to take his luck, to take his chance of being sniped by foes or friends. He'd be, with any luck, in Germany or France, or Kingdom Come next morning. Drearily the blazing day burnt over him, shot and shell, whistling and whining ceaselessly, but light, faded at last, and as the darkness fell, he rose and crawled away into the night. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Blue Ridge by Harriet Monroe. Read for LibriVox.org by Leanne Howlett. Still and calm, in purple robes of kings, the low-lying mountains sleep at the edge of the world. The forests cover them like mantles. Day and night rise and fall over them like the wash of waves. Asleep they reign. Silent they say all. Hush me, O slumbering mountains. Send me dreams. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Broom and the Shovel, the Poker and Tongs by Edward Lear. Read for LibriVox.org by Anne Cheng. The broom and the shovel, the poker and tongs. They all took a drive in the park, and they each sang a song, ding-a-dong, ding-a-dong, before they went back in the dark. Mr. Poker he sat quite upright in the coach, Mr. Tongs made a clatter and clash. Miss Shovel was dressed all in black, with a brooch. Mrs. Broom was in blue, with a sash. Ding-a-dong, ding-a-dong, and they all sang a song. "O Shovelly, so lovelly," the Poker he sang, "you have perfectly conquered my heart, ding-a-dong, ding-a-dong. If you're pleased with my song, I will feed you with cold apple tart. When you scrape up the coals with a delicate sound, you enrapture my life with delight. Your nose is so shiny, your head is so round, and your shape is so slender and bright. Ding-a-dong, ding-a-dong, ain't you pleased with my song?" "Alas, Mrs. Broom," sighed the Tongs in his song, "oh, is it because I'm so thin, and my legs are so long, ding-a-dong, ding-a-dong, that you don't care about me a pin? Ah, fairest of creatures, when sweeping the room, ah, why don't you heed my complaint? Must you needs be so cruel, you beautiful Broom, because you are covered with paint? Ding-a-dong, ding-a-dong, you are certainly wrong." Mrs. Broom and Miss Shovel together they sang. "What nonsense you're singing to-day!" Said the Shovel. "I'll certainly hit you a bang." Said the Broom. "And I'll sweep you away." So the coachman drove homeward as fast as he could, perceiving their anger with pain. But they put on the kettle, and little by little they all became happy again. Ding a dong, there's an end of my song. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Death of the Hired Man by Robert Frost. Read for LibriVox.org by Winston Tharp. Mary sat musing on the lamp flame at the table, waiting for Warren. When she heard his step, she ran on tiptoe down the darkened passage to meet him in the doorway with the news and put him on his guard. Silas is back. She pushed him outward with her through the door and shut it after her. Be kind, she said. She took the market things from Warren's arms and set them on the porch, then drew him down to sit beside her on the wooden steps. When was I ever anything but kind to him? But I'll not have the fellow back, he said. I told him so last haying, didn't I? If he left then, I said, that ended it. What good is he? Who else will harbor him at his age for the little he can do? What help he is, there's no depending on. Off he goes, always when I need him most. He thinks he ought to earn a little pay, enough at least to buy tobacco with, so he won't have to beg and be beholden. All right, I say. I can't afford to pay any fixed wages, though I wish I could. Someone else can, then someone else will have to. I shouldn't mind his bettering himself if that's what it was. You can be certain when he begins like that, there's someone at him trying to coax him off with pocket money in haying time when any help is scarce. In winter, he comes back to us. I'm done. Shh, not so loud, he'll hear you, Mary said. I want him to. He'll have to, soon or late. He's worn out. He's asleep beside the stove. When I came up from Rose, I found him here, huddled against the barn door, fast asleep, a miserable sight, and frightening, too. You needn't smile. I didn't recognize him. I wasn't looking for him, and he's changed. Wait till you see. Where did you say he'd been? He didn't say. I dragged him to the house and gave him tea and tried to make him smoke. I tried to make him talk about his travels. Nothing would do. He just kept nodding off. What did he say? Did he say anything? But little. Anything? Mary, confess he said he'd come to ditch the meadow for me. Warren! But did he? I just want to know. Of course he did. What would you have him say? Surely you wouldn't begrudge the poor old man some humble way to save his self-respect. He added if you really care to know, he meant to clear the upper pasture, too. That sounds like something you have heard before. Warren, I wish you could have heard the way he jumbled everything. I stopped to look 2 or 3 times, he made me feel so queer, to see if he was talking in his sleep. He ran on Harold Wilson, you remember? The boy you had in haying 4 years since. He's finished school and teaching in his college. Silas declares you'll have to get him back. He says they two will make a team for work. Between them they will lay this farm as smooth. The way he mixed that in with other things, he thinks young Wilson's a likely lad, though daft on education. You know how they fought all through July under the blazing sun, Silas up on the cart to build the load, Harold along beside to pitch it on. Yes, I took care to keep well out of earshot. Well, those days trouble Silas like a dream. You wouldn't think they would. How some things linger. Harold's young college boy's assurance piqued him. After so many years, he still keeps finding good arguments he sees he might have used. I sympathize. I know just how it feels to think of the right thing to say too late. Harold's associated in his mind with Latin. He asked me what I thought of Harold's saying he studied Latin like the violin because he liked it. That an argument. He said he couldn't make the boy believe he could find water with a hazel prong, which showed how much good school had ever done him. He wanted to go over that. But most of all, he thinks if he could have another chance to teach him how to build a load of hay. I know, that's Silas's one accomplishment. He bundles every forkful in his place and tags and numbers it for future reference so he can find it and easily dislodge it in the unloading. Silas does that well. He takes it out in bunches like big birds' nests. You never see him standing on the hay he's trying to lift, straining to lift himself. He thinks if he could teach him that, he'd be some good, perhaps, to someone in the world. He hates to see a boy the fool of books. Poor Silas, so concerned for other folk, and nothing to look backward to with pride, and nothing to look forward to with hope, so now and never any different. Part of a moon was falling down the west, dragging the whole sky with it to the hills. Its light poured softly in her lap. She saw and spread her apron to it. She put out her hand among the harp-like morning-glory strings taut with the dew from garden bed to eaves, as if she played unheard the tenderness that wrought on him beside her in the night. "Warren," she said, "he has come home to die. You needn't be afraid he'll leave you this time." "Home," he mocked gently. "Yes, what else but home? It all depends on what you mean by home. Of course he's nothing to us, any more than was the hound that came a stranger to us out of the woods, worn upon the trail. Home is the place where when you have to go there, they have to take you in. I should have called it something you somehow haven't to deserve." Warren leaned out and took a step or two, picked up a little stick and brought it back, and broke it in his hand and tossed it by. "Silas has a better claim on us, you think, than on his brother? 13 little miles as the road winds would bring him to his door. Silas has walked that far, no doubt, today. Why didn't he go there? His brother's rich, a somebody, director in the bank." "He never told us that." "We know it, though." "I think his brother ought to help, of course. I'll see to that if there is need. He ought of right to take him in, and might be willing to. He may be better than appearances. But have some pity on Silas. Do you think if he'd had any pride in claiming kin, or anything he looked for from his brother, he'd kept so still about him all this time? I wonder what's between them." "I can tell you. Silas is what he is. We wouldn't mind him, but just the kind that kinsfolk can't abide. He never did a thing so very bad. He don't know why he isn't quite as good as anyone. He won't be made ashamed to please his brother, worthless though he is." "I can't think Si ever hurt anyone." "No, but he hurt my heart the way he lay and rolled his old head on that sharp-edged chair back. He wouldn't let me put him on the lounge. You must go in and see what you can do. I made the bed up for him there tonight. You'll be surprised at him, how much he's broken. His working days are done, I'm sure of it." "I'd not be in a hurry to say that." "I haven't been. Go, look, see for yourself. But, Warren, please remember how it is. He's come to help you ditch the meadow. He has a plan. You mustn't laugh at him. He may not speak of it, and then he may. I'll sit and see if that small sailing cloud will hit or miss the moon." It hit the moon. Then there were 3 there, making a dim row, the moon, the little silver cloud, and she. Warren returned, too soon it seemed to her, slipped to her side, caught up her hand, and waited. "Warren?" she questioned. "Dead," was all he answered. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Effect by Siegfried Sassoon. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Reading by Bologna Times. The effect of our bombardment was terrific. One man told me he had never seen so many dead before. War correspondent. He'd never seen so many dead before. They sprawled in yellow daylight while he swore and gasped and lugged his everlasting load of bombs along what once had been a road. How peaceful are the dead who put that silly gag in someone's head. He'd never seen so many dead before. The lilting words danced up and down his brain while corpses jumped and capered in the rain. No, no, he wouldn't count them any more. The dead have done with pain. They've choked. They can't come back to life again. When Dick was killed last week, he looked like that, flapping along the fire step like a fish after the blazing crump had knocked him flat. How many dead? As many as ever you wish. Don't count 'em. They're too many. Who'll buy my nice fresh corpses? 2 a penny? End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
English Sonnet 17 by Fernando Pessoa. Read for LibriVox.org by Martin Geeson. My love, and not I, is the egoist. My love for thee, loves itself more than thee, ay, more than me, in whom it doth exist, and makes me live that it may feed on me. In the country of bridges, the bridge is more real than the shores it doth unsever. So in our world, all of relation, this is true, that truer is love than either lover. This thought therefore comes lightly to doubt's door. If we, seeing substance of this world, are not mere intervals, God's absence and no more hollows in real consciousness and thought. And if 'tis possible to thought to bear this fruit, why should it not be possible to truth? End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
First Fig by Edna St. Vincent Millay. Read for LibriVox.org by Leanne Howlett. My candle burns at both ends. It will not last the night. But ah, my foes, and oh, my friends, it gives a lovely light. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Flannan Isle by Wilfred Wilson Gibson. Read for LibriVox.org by Trisha G. Though 3 men dwell on Flannan Isle to keep the lamp alight, as we steered under the lee we caught no glimmer through the night. A passing ship at dawn had brought the news, and quickly we set sail to find out what strange thing might ail the keepers of the deep sea light. The winter day broke blue and bright, with glancing sun and glancing spray, as o'er the swell our boat made way, as gallant as a gull in flight. But, as we neared the lonely isle, and looked up at the naked height, and saw the lighthouse towering white, with blinded lantern, that all night had never shot a spark of comfort through the dark, so ghostly in the cold sunlight it seemed that we were struck the while with wonder all too dread for words. And, as into the tiny creek we stole beneath the hanging crag, we saw 3 queer, black, ugly birds, too big by far, in my belief, for guillemot or shag, like seamen sitting bolt upright upon a half-tide reef. But, as we neared, they plunged from sight without a sound or spurt of white. And still too mazed to speak, we landed and made fast the boat, and climbed the track in single file, each wishing he was safe afloat on any sea, however far, so it be far from Flannan Isle. And still we seemed to climb and climb, as though we'd lost all count of time, and so must climb for evermore. Yet all too soon we reached the door, the black, sun-blistered lighthouse door, that gaped for us ajar. As, on the threshold, for a spell, we paused, we seemed to breathe the smell of lime-wash and of tar, familiar as our daily breath, as though 'twere some strange scent of death. And so, yet wondering, side by side, we stood a moment, still tongue-tied, and each with black foreboding eyed the door ere we should fling it wide, to leave the sunlight for the gloom, till, plucking courage up at last, hard on each other's heels we passed into the living-room. Yet, as we crowded through the door, we only saw a table spread for dinner, meat and cheese and bread, but all untouched, and no one there, as though, when they sat down to eat, ere they could even taste, alarm had come, and they in haste had risen and left the bread and meat, for at the table-head a chair lay tumbled on the floor. We listened, but we only heard the feeble cheeping of a bird that starved upon its perch, and, listening still without a word, we set about our hopeless search. We hunted high, we hunted low, and soon ransacked the empty house. Then o'er the island, to and fro, we ranged, to listen and to look in every cranny, cleft, or nook that might have hid a bird or mouse. But, though we searched from shore to shore, we found no sign in any place, and soon again stood face to face before the gaping door, and stole into the room once more as frightened children steal. Ay, though we hunted high and low, and hunted everywhere, of the 3 men's fate we found no trace, of any kind in any place, but a door ajar, and an untouched meal, and an overtoppled chair. And, as we listened in the gloom of that forsaken living room, a chill clutch on our breath, we thought how ill chance came to all who kept the Flannan Light, and how the rock had been the death of many a likely lad, how 6 had come to a sudden end, and 3 had gone stark mad, and one whom we'd all known as friend had leapt from the lantern one still night, and fallen dead by the lighthouse wall, and long we thought on the 3 we sought, and of what might yet befall. Like curs a glance has brought to heel, we listened, flinching there, and looked on the untouched meal and the overtoppled chair. We seemed to stand for an endless while, though still no word was said, 3 men alive on Flannan Isle, who thought on 3 men dead. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Flash Crimson by Carl Sandburg. Read for LibriVox.org by Harry Caulfield. I shall cry God to give me a broken foot. I shall ask for a scar and a slashed nose. I shall take the last and the worst. I shall be eaten by gray creepers in a bunkhouse, where no runners of the sun come and no dogs live. And yet, of all and yets, this is the bronze strongest. I shall keep one thing better than all else. There is the blue steel of a great star of early evening in it. It lives longer than a broken foot or any scar. The broken foot goes to a hole dug with a shovel, where the bone of a nose may whiten on a hilltop. And yet, there is one crimson pinch of ashes left, after all, and none of the shifting winds that whip the grass, and none of the pounding rains that beat the dust, know how to touch or find the flash of this crimson. I cry God to give me a broken foot, a scar, or a lousy death. I, who have seen the flash of this crimson, I ask God for the last and the worst. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
For a Picture of Saint Dorothea by Gerard Manley Hopkins. Read for LibriVox.org by Sandy Leonard. I bear a basket lined with grass. I am so light, I am so fair, that men must wonder as I pass, and at the basket that I bear, where in a newly drawn green litter sweet flowers I carry, sweets for bitter. Lilies I show you, lilies none in Caesar's garden blow, and a quince in hand. Not one is set upon your boughs below, not set, because their buds not spring, spring not, 'cause world is wintering. But these were found in the east and south, where winter is the clime forgot. The dewdrop on the larkspur's mouth, oh, should it then be quenched not? In starry water meads they drew these drops, which be they, stars or dew? Had she a quince in hand, yet gaze! Rather, it is the sizing moon. Lo, linked heavens with milky ways! That was her larkspur row. So soon? Sphered so fast, sweet soul? We see nor fruit, nor flowers, nor Dorothy. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. Heaven Haven by Gerard Manley Hopkins. Read for LibriVox.org by Sandy Leonard. A nun takes the veil. I have decided to go where springs not fail, to fields where flies no sharp and sided hail and a few lilies blow. And I have asked to be where no storms come, where the green swell is in the havens dumb, and out of the swing of the sea. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Song, How Sweet I Roamed from Field to Field by William Blake. Read for LibriVox.org by Lonell Yoder, January 23, 2011. How sweet I roamed from field to field, and tasted all the summer's pride, till I the Prince of Love beheld, who in the sunny beams did glide. He showed me lilies for my hair, and blushing roses for my brow. He led me through his gardens fair, where all his golden pleasures grow. With sweet maydews my wings were wet, and Phoebus fired my vocal rage. He caught me in his silken net, and shut me in his golden cage. He loves to sit and hear me sing, then, laughing, sports and plays with me, then stretches out my golden wing, and mocks my loss of liberty. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
I'm Wife by Emily Dickinson. Read for LibriVox.org by Crystal Commander. Humboldt, California, January 2011. I'm wife. I've finished that other state. I'm czar. I'm woman now. It's safer so. How odd the girl's life looks behind this soft eclipse. I think that earth seems so to those in heaven now. This being comfort then, that other kind was pain. But why compare? I'm wife. Stop there. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Insomnia by John Davidson. Read for LibriVox.org by Martin Geeson. He wakened quivering on a golden rack inlaid with gems. No sign of change, no fear or hope of death came near. Only the empty ether hovered black about him, stretched upon his living bier, of old by Merlin's master deftly wrought. Two seraphim of Gabriel's helpful race, in that far nook of space, with iron levers wrenched and held him taut. The seraph at his head was agony. Delight, more terrible, stood at his feet. Their sixfold pinions beat the darkness, or were spread immovably poising the rack, whose jewelled fabric, meet to strain a god, did fitfully unmask, with olive light of chrysoprases dim, the smiling seraphim, implacably intent upon their task. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Jabberwocky by Lewis Carroll. Read for LibriVox.org by Ralph Kerwin. January 23, 2011. 'Twas brillig, and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wabe. All mimsy were the borogoves, and the mome raths outgrabe. Beware the jabberwock, my son, the jaws that bite, the claws that catch. Beware the jubjub bird, and shun the frumious bandersnatch. He took his vorpal sword in hand. Long time the manxome foe he sought. So rested he by the tum-tum tree, and stood awhile in thought. And as in uffish thought he stood, the jabberwock with eyes of flame came whiffling through the tulgey wood, and burbled as it came. 1, 2, 1, 2, and through, and through. The vorpal blade went snicker, snack. He left it dead, and with its head he went galumphing back. And hast thou slain the jabberwock? Come to my arms, my beamish boy. O frabjous day, Callooh, Calais, he chortled in his joy. 'Twas brillig, and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wabe. All mimsy were the borogoves, and the mome raths outgrabe. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
La Belle Dame sans Merci by John Keats. Read for LibriVox.org by Morgan Scorpion. Ah, what can ail thee, wretched wight, alone and palely loitering? The sedge is withered from the lake, and no birds sing. Ah, what can ail thee, wretched wight, so haggard and so woebegone? The squirrel's granary is full, and the harvest's done. I see a lily on thy brow, with anguish moist and fever dew, and on thy cheek a fading rose, fast withereth too. I met a lady in the meads, full beautiful, a fairy's child. Her hair was long, her foot was light, and her eyes were wild. I set her on my pacing steed, and nothing else saw all day long, for sideways would she lean and sing a fairy's song. I made a garland for her head, and bracelets too, and fragrant zone. She looked at me as she did love, and made sweet moan. She found me roots of relish sweet, and honey wild, and manna dew, and sure in language strange she said, I love thee true. She took me to her elfin grot, and there she gazed, and sighed deep, and there I shut her wild sad eyes, so kissed to sleep. And there we slumbered on the moss, and there I dreamed, ah woe betide, the latest dream I ever dreamed, on the cold hillside. I saw pale kings, and princes too, pale warriors, death pale were they all, who cried, La Belle Dame sans Merci hath thee in thrall. I saw their starved lips in the gloam, with horrid warning gaped wide, and I awoke and found me here, on the cold hillside. And that is why I sojourn here, alone and palely loitering, though the sedge is withered from the lake, and no birds sing. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Lie by Sir Walter Raleigh. Read for LibriVox.org by Joshua Commander. Go, soul, the body's guest, upon a thankless errand. Fear not to touch the best, the truth shall be thy warrant. Go, since I needs must die, and give the world the lie. Say to the court it glows, and shines like rotten wood. Say to the church it shows what's good and doth no good. If church and court reply, then give them both the lie. Tell potentates they live, acting by another's action, not loved unless they give, not strong but by a faction. If potentates reply, give potentates the lie. Tell men of high condition that manage the estate, their purpose is ambition, their practice only hate. And if they once reply, then give them all the lie. Tell them that brave it most, they beg for more by spending, who, in their greatest cost, seek nothing but commending. And if they make reply, then give them all the lie. Tell zeal at once devotion, tell love it is but lust, tell time it is but motion, tell flesh it is but dust, and wish them not reply, for thou must give the lie. Tell age it daily wasteth, tell honor how it alters, tell beauty how she blasteth, tell favor how it falters, and as they shall reply, give every one the lie. Tell wit how much it wrangles, and tickle points of niceness, tell wisdom she entangles herself in overwiseness, and when they do reply, straight give them both the lie. Tell physic of her boldness, tell skill it is pretension, tell charity of coldness, tell law it is contention, and as they do reply, so give them still the lie. Tell fortune of her blindness, tell nature of decay, tell friendship of unkindness, tell justice of delay, and if they will reply, then give them all the lie. Tell arts they have no soundness, but vary by esteeming, tell schools they want profoundness, and stand too much on seeming. If arts and school reply, give arts and schools the lie. Tell faith it's fled the city, tell how the country erreth, tell manhood shakes off pity, tell virtue least preferreth, and if they do reply, spare not to give the lie. So when thou hast, as I, commanded thee, done blabbing, although to give the lie deserves no less than stabbing, stab at thee he that will, no stab the soul can kill. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Little Boy Blue by Eugene Field. Read for LibriVox.org by Amanda Thompson. The little toy dog is covered with dust, but sturdy and staunch he stands, and the little toy soldier is red with rust, and his musket molds in his hands. Time was when the little toy dog was new, and the soldier was passing fair, and that was the time when our little boy Blue kissed them and put them there. "Now don't you go till I come," he said, "and don't you make any noise." So toddling off to his trundle bed, he dreamt of the pretty toys, and as he was dreaming, an angel's song awakened our little boy Blue. Oh, the years are many and the years are long, but the little toy friends are true. Aye, faithful to little boy Blue they stand, each in the same old place, awaiting the touch of a little hand, the smile of a little face. And they wonder, as waiting these long years through, in the dust of that little chair, what has become of our little boy Blue, since he kissed them and put them there. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Mending Wall by Robert Frost. Read for LibriVox.org by Winston Tharp. Something there is that doesn't love a wall, that sends the frozen groundswell under it, and spills the upper boulders in the sun, and makes gaps even two can pass abreast. The work of hunters is another thing. I have come after them and made repair where they have left not one stone on a stone, but they would have the rabbit out of hiding to please the yelping dogs. The gaps, I mean. No one has seen them made or heard them made, but at spring mending time we find them there. I let my neighbor know beyond the hill, and on a day we meet to walk the line and set the wall between us once again. We keep the wall between us as we go, to each the boulders that have fallen to each. And some are loaves, and some so nearly balls we have to use a spell to make them balance. Stay where you are until our backs are turned. We wear our fingers rough with handling them. Oh, just another kind of outdoor game, one on a side. It comes to little more. There where it is, we do not need the wall. He is all pine, and I am apple orchard. My apple trees will never get across and eat the cones under his pines, I tell him. He only says, "Good fences make good neighbors." Spring is the mischief in me, and I wondered if I could put a notion in his head. Why do they make good neighbors? Isn't it where there are cows? But here there are no cows. Before I built a wall, I'd ask to know what I was walling in or walling out, and to whom I was like to give offense. Something there is that doesn't love a wall, that wants it down. I could say elves to him, but it's not elves exactly, and I'd rather he said it for himself. I see him there bringing a stone grasped firmly by the top in each hand, like an old stone savage armed. He moves in darkness, as it seems to me, not of woods only and the shade of trees. He will not go behind his father's saying, and he likes having thought of it so well, he says again, "Good fences make good neighbors." End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Mermaid's Glass by Henry A. Beers. Read for LibriVox.org by Lars Rolander. The Mermaid's Glass. 'Twas down among the Thimble Isles, that strew for many liquid miles the waters of Long Island Sound, our yacht lay in a cove around the rocky isles with cedars green, and channels winding in between. And here a low black reef was spread, and there a sunken niggerhead dimpled the surface of the tide from one tall island's cliffy side. We heard the shaggy goats that fed, the gulls wheel screaming overhead, or settled in a snowy flock far out upon the lonely rock, which like a pillar seemed to show some drowned Acropolis below. Meanwhile, in the warm sea about, with many a plunge and jolly shout, our crew enjoyed their morning bath. The hairy skipper in his wrath lay cursing on the gunwale's rim. He loved a dip, but could not swim, so now and then with plank afloat he'd struggle feebly round the boat, and over the side climb puffing in, scraping wide areas off his skin. Then lie and sun each hirsute limb once more upon the gunwale's rim, and shout with curses unavailing, "Come out, there's wind, let's do some sailing." A palm leaf hat that here and there bobbed on the water showed him where some venturous swimmer outward bound escaped beyond his voice's sound. All heedless of their skipper's call, one group fought for the upset yawl. The conqueror sat astride the keel and deftly pounded with his heel the hands that clutched his citadel, which showed at distance like the shell round which unseen the Naiad train sport naked on the middle main. Myself had drifted far away, meanwhile from where the sailboat lay, till all unbroken I could hear the waves' low whisper in my ear. And at the level of mine eye the blue vibration met the sky. Sometimes upon my back I lay and watched the clouds, while I and they were wafted effortless along. Sudden I seemed to hear a song, yet not a song, but some weird strain, as though the inarticulate main had found a voice whose human tone interpreted its own dull moan, its foamy hiss, its surfy roar, its gentle lapping on the shore, its noise of subterranean waves that grumble in the sea cliff caves, its swish among the drifting miles of gulf weed from the Indian Isles. All the harmonies were there which ocean makes with earth or air. Turning, I saw a sunken ledge, bared by the ebb, along whose edge the matted seaweed dripped thereon, betwixt the dazzle of the sun and the blue shimmer of the sea. I saw, or else I seemed to see, a mermaid crooning a wild song, combing with arm uplifted long the hair that shed its meshes black down the slope whiteness of her back. She held a mirror in her hand, wherein she viewed sky, sea, and land, her beauty's background and its frame. But now, as toward the rock I came, all suddenly across the glass some startling image seemed to pass, for her song rose into a scream. Over her shoulders one swift gleam of eyes unearthly fell on me, and twixt the flashing of the sea and the blind dazzle of the sun I saw the rock, but thereupon she sat no longer 'gainst the blue. Only across the reef there flew one snow white tern and vanished too. But coasting that lone island round, among the slippery kelp I found a little oval glass that lay upturned and flashing in the ray of the down looking sun thereto. With scarce believing eyes I drew and took it captive. A while there I rested in the mermaid's lair, and felt the merry breeze that blew, and watched the sharpies as they flew, and snuffed the sea's breath thick with brine, and basked me in the sun's warm shine. Then with my prize I made my way once more to where the sailboat lay. I kept the secret and the glass. By day across its surface pass the transient shapes of common things, which chance within its oval brings. But when at night I strive to sound the darkness of its face profound, again I seem to hear the breeze that curls the waves on summer seas. I see the isles with cedars green, the channels winding in between, the coves with beaches of white sand, the reefs where warning spindles stand, and through the multitudinous shimmer of waves and sun again the glimmer of eyes unearthly falls on me, deep with the mystery of the sea. End of poem. This poem is in public domain.
My Last Duchess by Robert Browning. Read for LibriVox.org by Michelle R. Wood. That's my last Duchess painted on the wall, looking as if she were alive. I call that piece a wonder now. Frau Pandolf's hands worked busily a day, and there she stands. Will it please you sit and look at her? I said Frau Pandolf by design, for never read strangers like you that pictured countenance, the depth and passion of its earnest glance, but to myself they turned, since none puts by the curtain I have drawn for you but I, and seemed as they would ask me, if they durst, how such a glance came there, so, not the first are you to turn and ask thus. Sir, 'twas not her husband's presence only called that spot of joy into the Duchess's cheek. Perhaps Frau Pandolf chanced to say, her mantle laps over my lady's wrists too much, or paint must never hope to reproduce the faint half-flush that dies along her throat. Such stuff was courtesy, she thought, and cause enough for calling up that spot of joy. She had a heart, how shall I say, too soon made glad, too easily impressed. She liked whate'er she looked on, and her looks went everywhere. Sir, 'twas all one. My favour at her breast, the drooping of the daylight in the west, the bough of cherries some officious fool broke in the orchard for her, the white mule she rode with round the terrace, all and each would draw from her alike the approving speech, or blush at least. She thanked men, good, but thanked somehow, I know not how, as if she ranked my gift of a 900-years-old name with anybody's gift. Who'd stoop to blame this sort of trifling? Even had you skill in speech, which I have not, to make your will quite clear to such an one, and say, just this or that in you disgusts me, Here you miss, or there exceed the mark. And if she let herself be lessoned so, nor plainly set her wits to yours forsooth, and made excuse, e'en that would be some stooping, and I choose never to stoop. Oh, sir, she smiled, no doubt, whene'er I passed her, but who passed without much the same smile? This grew, I gave commands, then all smiles stopped together. There she stands as if alive. Would please you rise? We'll meet the company below then. I repeat, the Count your master's known munificence is ample warrant that no just pretence of mine for dowry will be disallowed, though his fair daughter's self, as I avowed at starting, is my object. Nay, we'll go together down, sir. Notice Neptune, though, taming a sea-horse, thought a rarity, which claws of Innsbruck cast in bronze for me. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Of One Self Slain by Charles Hanson Towne. Read for LibriVox.org by Corrie Samuel. When he went blundering back to God, his songs half written, his work half done, who knows what paths his bruised feet trod, what hills of peace or pain he won? I hope God smiled and took his hand, and said, "Poor truant, passionate fool, life's book is hard to understand. Why couldst thou not remain at school?" End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
On His Deceased Wife by John Milton. Read for LibriVox by Frank Malanga. Methought I saw my late espoused saint brought to me like Alcestis from the grave, whom Jove's great son to her glad husband gave, rescued from death by force, though pale and faint. Mine, as whom washed from spot of childbed taint, purification in the old law did save, and such as yet once more I trust to have full sight of her in heaven without restraint, came vested all in white, pure as her mind. Her face was veiled, yet to my fancied sight love, sweetness, goodness in her person shined, so clear as in no face with more delight. But oh, as to embrace me she inclined, I waked, she fled, and day brought back my night. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
On the Medusa of Leonardo da Vinci in the Florentine Gallery by Percy Bysshe Shelley. Read for LibriVox.org by Morgan Scorpion. 1. It lieth, gazing on the midnight sky, upon the cloudy mountain peaks of pine. Below, far lands are seen tremblingly, its horror and its beauty are divine. Upon its lips and eyelids seems to lie loveliness like a shadow, from which shine, fiery and lurid, struggling underneath, the agonies of anguish and of death. 2. Yet it is less the horror than the grace which turns the gazer's spirit into stone, whereon the lineaments of that dead face are graven, till the characters be grown into itself, and thought no more can trace. 'Tis the melodious hue of beauty thrown athwart the darkness and the glare of pain, which humanize and harmonize the strain. 3. And from its head, as from one body grow, as grass out of a watery rock, hairs which are vipers, and they curl and flow, and their long tangles in each other lock, and with unending involutions show their mailed radiance, as it were to mock the torture and the death within, and saw the solid air with many a ragged jaw. 4. And, from a stone beside, a poisonous eft peeps idly into those Gorgonian eyes, whilst in the air a ghastly bat, bereft of sense, has flitted with a mad surprise out of the cave this hideous light had cleft, and he comes hastening, like a moth that hies after a taper, and the midnight sky flares, a light more dread than obscurity. 5. 'Tis the tempestuous loveliness of terror, for from the serpents gleam a brazen glare, kindled by that inextricable error, which makes a thrilling vapour of the air, become an ever-shifting mirror of all the beauty and the terror there. A woman's countenance, with serpent locks, gazing in death on heaven from those wet rocks.
End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
On Time by John Milton. Read for LibriVox by Frank Malanga. Fly, envious time, till thou run out thy race. Call on the lazy, leaden stepping hours, whose speed is but the heavy plummet's pace. And glut thyself with what thy womb devours, which is no more than what is false and vain and merely mortal dross. So little is our loss, so little is thy gain. For whenas each thing bad thou hast entombed, and last of all thy greedy self consumed, then long eternity shall greet our bliss with an individual kiss, and joy shall undertake us as a flood. When everything that is sincerely good and perfectly divine, with truth and peace and love, shall ever shine about the supreme throne of Him, to whose happy making sight alone, when once our heavenly guided soul shall climb. Then all this earthly grossness quit, attired with stars we shall forever sit, triumphing over death and chance and thee, O Time. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Philomela by Sir Philip Sidney. Read for LibriVox.org by Algie Pug. Philomela. The nightingale, as soon as April bringeth unto her rested sense a perfect waking, while late bare earth, proud of new clothing, springeth, sings out her woes, a thorn her song-book making, and mournfully bewailing, her throat in tunes expresseth what grief her breast oppresseth, for Tereus' force on her chaste will prevailing. O Philomela fair, O take some gladness, that here is just a cause of plaintful sadness. Thine earth now springs, mine fadeth, thy thorn without, my thorn my heart invadeth. Alas, she hath no other cause of anguish but Tereus' love, on her by strong hand wroken, wherein she suffering, all her spirits languish, full woman-like complains her will was broken. But I, who daily craving cannot have to content me, have more cause to lament me, since wanting is more woe than too much having. O Philomela fair, O take some gladness, that here is just a cause of plaintful sadness. Thine earth now springs, mine fadeth, thy thorn without, my thorn my heart invadeth. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. Read for LibriVox.org by Clarence Bonner. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered, weak and weary, over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door, "only this, and nothing more." Ah, distinctly I remember, it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow. Vainly I had sought to borrow from my books surcease of sorrow, sorrow for the lost Lenore, for the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels name Lenore, nameless here forevermore. And the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before, so that now, to still the beating of my heart, I stood repeating, 'tis some visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door, some late visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. This it is, and nothing more. Presently my soul grew stronger, hesitating, then no longer. Sir, said I, or madam, truly your forgiveness I implore. But the fact is, I was napping, and so gently you came rapping, and so faintly you came tapping, tapping at my chamber door, that I scarce was sure I heard you. Here I opened wide the door. Darkness there, and nothing more. Deep into that darkness peering, long I stood there wandering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal ever dared to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, and the darkness gave no token, and the only word there spoken was the whispered word, Lenore. This I whispered, and an echo murmured back the word, Lenore. Merely this, and nothing more. Back into the chamber turning, all my soul within me burning, soon again I heard a tapping, somewhat louder than before. Surely, said I, surely that is something at my window lattice. Let me see then what thereat is, and this mystery explore. Let my heart be still a moment, and this mystery explore. 'Tis the wind, and nothing more. Open here I flung the shutter, when with many a flirt and flutter, in there stepped a stately raven of the saintly days of yore. Not the least obeisance made he, not a minute stopped or stayed he, but with mien of lord or lady perched above my chamber door, perched upon a bust of Pallas, just above my chamber door, perched and sat, and nothing more. Then this ebony bird beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore. Though thy crest be shorn and shaven, thou, I said, art sure no craven, ghastly grim and ancient raven, wandering from the nightly shore. Tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore. Quoth the raven, Nevermore. Much I marvelled this ungainly fowl to hear discourse so plainly, though its answer little meaning, little relevancy bore. For we cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet was blessed with seeing bird above his chamber door, bird or beast upon the sculptured bust above his chamber door, with such name as Nevermore. But the raven, sitting lonely on the placid bust, spoke only that one word, as if his soul in that one word he did outpour. Nothing further than he uttered, not a feather than he fluttered, till I scarcely more than muttered, Other friends have flown before. On the morrow he will leave me, as my hopes have flown before. Then the bird said, Nevermore. Startled at the stillness broken by reply so aptly spoken, doubtless, said I, what it utters is only stock and store, caught from some unhappy master, whom unmerciful disaster followed fast and followed faster, till his songs one burden bore, till the dirges of his hope that melancholy burden bore, of never, nevermore. But the raven, still beguiling all my sad soul into smiling, straight I wheeled a cushioned seat in front of bird and bust and door. Then upon the velvet sinking, I betook myself to linking fancy onto fancy, thinking what this ominous bird of yore what this grim, ungainly, ghastly, gaunt, and ominous bird of yore meant in croaking nevermore. This I sat engaged in guessing, but no syllable expressing to the fowl whose fiery eyes now burned into my bosom's core. This and more I sat divining, with my head at ease reclining on the cushion's velvet lining that the lamplight gloated o'er, but whose velvet violet lining with the lamplight gloating o'er she shall press on nevermore. Then methought the air grew denser, perfumed from an unseen censer, swung by seraphim whose footfalls tinkled on the tufted floor. Wretch, I cried, thy God hath lent thee, by these angels he hath sent thee, respite, respite, and nepenthe from thy memories of Lenore. Quaff, O quaff this kind nepenthe, and forget this lost Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, whether tempter sent, or whether tempest tossed thee here ashore, desolate, yet all undaunted, on this desert land enchanted, on this home by horror haunted, tell me truly, I implore, is there balm in Gilead? Tell me, I implore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, by that heaven that bends above us, by that God we both adore, tell this soul with sorrow laden, if within the distant Aidenn it shall clasp a sainted maiden, whom the angels name Lenore, clasp a rare and radiant maiden, whom the angels name Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Be that word our sign of parting, bird or fiend, I shrieked upstarting, get thee back into the tempest and the night's Plutonian shore. Leave no black plume as a token of that lie thy soul hath spoken. Leave my loneliness unbroken, quit the bust above my door. Take thy beak from out my heart, and take thy form from off my door. Quoth the raven, nevermore. And the raven, never flitting, still is sitting on the pallid bust of Pallas, just above my chamber door. And his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming, and the lamplight o'er him streaming throws his shadow on the floor. And my soul from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted nevermore. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Rose Begonias, Part 12 of A Boy's Will by Robert Frost. Read for LibriVox.org by Nicole Euler. A saturated meadow, sun-shaped and jewel-small, a circle scarcely wider than the trees around were tall, where winds were quite excluded, and the air was stifling sweet, with the breath of many flowers, a temple of the heat. There we bowed us in the burning, as the sun's right worship is, to pick where none could miss them, 1,000 orchises. For though the grass was scattered, yet every second spear seemed tipped with wings of color that tinged the atmosphere. We raised a simple prayer before we left the spot, that in the general mowing that place might be forgot, or if not also favored, obtain such grace of ours, that none should mow the grass there, while so confused with flowers. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Sally Simpkin's Lament, or John Jones's Kit Catastrophe, by Thomas Hood, read for LibriVox.org by Leonard Wilson of Springfield, Ohio, January 2011. He left his body to the sea and made a shark his legatee, Bryan and Perrin. Oh, what is that comes gliding in, and quite in middling haste? It is the picture of my Jones, and painted to the waist. It is not painted to the life, for where's the trousers blue? Oh, Jones, my dear, oh dear, my Jones, what is become of you? Oh, Sally dear, it is too true, the half that you remark is come to say my other half is bit off by a shark. Oh, Sally, sharks do things by halves, yet most completely do. A bite in one place seems enough, but I've been bit in two. You know I once was all your own, but now a shark must share. But let that pass, for now to you I'm neither here nor there. Alas, death has a strange divorce effected in the sea. It has divided me from you, and even me from me. Don't fear my ghost will walk o' nights to haunt, as people say. My ghost can't walk, for oh, my legs are many leagues away. Lord, think when I am swimming round and looking where the boat is, a shark just snaps away a half without a quarter's notice. One half is here, the other half is near Columbia placed. Oh, Sally, I have got the whole Atlantic for my waist. But now, adieu, a long adieu. I've solved death's awful riddle, and would say more, but I am doomed to break off in the middle. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Times Go by Turns by Robert Southwell. Read for LibriVox.org by Algie Pug. The lopped tree in time may grow again. Most naked plants renew both fruit and flower. The sorest wight may find release of pain. The dry soil suck in some moistening shower. Times go by turns, and chances change by course, from foul to fair, from better hap to worse. The sea of fortune doth not ever flow, she draws her favours to the lowest ebb. Her tides hath equal times to come and go, her loom doth weave the fine and coarsest web. No joy so great but runneth to an end, no hap so hard but may in fine amend. Not always fall of leaf, nor ever spring, no endless night, yet not eternal day. The saddest birds a season find to sing, the roughest storm a calm may soon allay. Thus with succeeding turns God tempereth all, that man may hope to rise, yet fear to fall. A chance may win that by mischance was lost. The net that holds no great takes little fish. In some things all, in all things none are crossed. Few all they need, but none have all they wish. Unmeddled joys here to no man befall. Who least hath some, who most hath never all. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
To an Oak at Newstead by George Gordon, Lord Byron. Read for LibriVox.org by Amy Graymore. Young oak, when I planted thee deep in the ground, I hoped that thy days would be longer than mine, that thy dark waving branches would flourish around, and ivy thy trunk with its mantle entwine. Such was my hope, when in infancy's years on the land of my fathers I reared thee with pride. They are past, and I water thy stem with my tears. Thy decay not the weeds that surround thee can hide. I left thee, my oak, and since that fatal hour a stranger has dwelt in the hall of my sire, till manhood shall crown me. Not mine is the power, but his whose neglect may have bade thee expire. O hardy thou wert, even now little care might revive thy young head, and thy wounds gently heal, but thou wert not fated affection to share, for who could suppose that a stranger would feel? Ah, droop not, my oak, lift thy head for a while, Ere twice round yon glory this planet shall run, the hand of thy Master will teach thee to smile, when infancy's years of probation are done. Oh, live then, my oak! Tower aloft from the weeds that clog thy young growth and assist thy decay, for still in thy bosom are life's early seeds, and still may thy branches their beauty display. Oh, yet if maturity's years may be thine, though I shall lie low in the cavern of death, on thy leaves yet the daybeam of ages may shine, uninjured by time or the rude winter's breath. For centuries still may thy boughs lightly wave o'er the corse of thy Lord in thy canopy laid, while the branches thus gratefully shelter his grave. The chief who survives may recline in thy shade. And as he with his boys shall revisit this spot, he will tell them in whispers more softly to tread, Oh, surely by these I shall ne'er be forgot, remembrance still hallows the dust of the dead. And here will they say, when in life's glowing prime, perhaps he has poured forth his young simple lay, and here must he sleep till the moments of time are lost in the hours of eternity's day. End of poem. This poem is in the public domain.
The Village Blacksmith by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Read for LibriVox.org by Ralph Kerwin. January 30th, 2011. Under a spreading chestnut tree the village smithy stands. The smith, a mighty man is he, with large and sinewy hands, and the muscles of his brawny arms are strong as iron bands. His hair is crisp and black and long, his face is like the tan. His brow is wet with honest sweat, he earns whate'er he can, and looks the whole world in the face, for he owes not any man. Week in, week out, from morn till night, you can hear his bellows blow. You can hear him swing his heavy sledge with measured beat and slow, like a sexton ringing the village bell when the evening sun is low. And children coming home from school look in at the open door. They love to see the flaming forge and hear the bellows roar, and watch the burning sparks that fly like chaff from a threshing floor. He goes on Sunday to the church and sits among his boys. He hears the parson pray and preach. He hears his daughter's voice singing in the village choir, and it makes his heart rejoice. It sounds to him like her mother's voice singing in paradise. He needs must think of her once more, how in the grave she lies. And with his hard, rough hand he wipes a tear out of his eyes. Toiling, rejoicing, sorrowing, onward through life he goes. Each morning sees some task begin, each evening sees it close. Something attempted, something done, has earned a night's repose. Thanks, thanks to thee, my worthy friend, for the lesson thou hast taught. Thus at the flaming forge of life our fortunes must be wrought. Thus on its sounding anvil shaped each burning deed and thought. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Where the Mind is Without Fear, from Gitanjali by Rabindranath Tagore, read by Aparna Vishwanatham. This is a LibriVox recording. Where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, where words come out from the depth of truth, where tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habit, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever-widening thought and action, Into that heaven of freedom, my father, let my country awake. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.